message just to say thank you for joining us. Thank you for coming with us. Give us your time to see this is the way we can change the world. And as we close, I want to remind you of their transformations, and including some what our life would have looked like before pregnant in their first. We didn't get any official, but it made it very hard for them, just not knowing and not, man, I said these formed. These were get these specific, wanted to get the best because you have, what is it taking away? We'll really take of things like broccoli and cab for 3 months. That watched this series, I didn't know her before. I felt like so, and all this inflammation, those type, come with me on this journey, like this, to take a move, to not take the time. I will look forward to seeing you inside of the program, and can't wait to meet you. Thanks so much. This is Jonathan Otto, and this is Autoimmune Answers. Hi, this is Jonathan Otto. Welcome to Autoimmune Answers. The importance of gut microbiome was only discovered recently. We used to think of the gut operating in isolation. We're now learning that the gut plays a very important role in the body. It actually regulates many of our internal systems, like our hormone system and our blood glucose balance and more. Apart from these internal processes, there is a direct link between the gut and the brain. In our previous episode, we highlighted the importance of this relationship. The gut is one of the most important defense systems against toxins because the gut and its microbes control what is discarded and what is allowed into the bloodstream. This means that it controls your immune system. And in fact, about 70 to 80% of your immune system is in your gut. It's no wonder that most symptoms of autoimmune disease start there. An unhealthy gut is then responsible for high levels of inflammation in the body. We're also learning that many of the Western medicines we're using are having a long-lasting and damaging effect on the gut. The overuse of antibiotics and antacids is destroying our microbiome. We are now discovering the importance of getting rid of toxins and parasites and using probiotics and other supplements and natural medicines to restore our gut health. Our greatest defense against autoimmune disease is making sure we protect our gut and keep our gut microbiome balanced. In this episode, we'll take a close look into the importance of the gut, talk about the systems it regulates in the body, the things that are causing damage, and what can be done to protect and repair it. Dr. Vincent Pedre, you are an expert in gut health, and you've got some fascinating things to share with us today in regards to how people can have a healthy gut. And so I can't think of one, thank you for doing this. It's an honor to have you. Thank you for your patience, your time, being with us, and I'm looking forward to what you've got to share.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Very welcome. So why don't we dive in? I mean, what's this thing with the gut, this whole conversation? You can take me through where it comes, if you can tell me what's the problem in regards to gut health, like why people having so many gut health related conditions, what's going on here?
I think the first thing to understand, or I think that's really important, is that the body operates as a system. So it's not just the gut in isolation, it's the gut in relation to other parts of the body, including the brain. We hear about the gut-brain axis, but the gut regulates so many internal processes. It includes regulating our hormone system, our blood glucose balance, so many things that we're learning that are actually rooted in the gut microbiome that we used to think were just internal body processes are actually created in a symbiotic realm with our gut. And that's something really important to understand because we think of just the gut as this plumbing system that you eat food, it goes through you, it gets digested, and it comes out the other end as poop. And you don't think of all the things that are happening in between that really play a significant role in your health. The foods you eat dictate the type of microbiome that exists in your gut. But at the same token, the drugs you take also determine the state of your internal environment. And there's a lot of drugs that people take. One of the highest prescribed medications over the entire world are proton pump inhibitors, which are basically antacids. They reduce the level of stomach acid production. And by doing that, they're altering the first primary step in a system that has been designed to work in a certain fashion for thousands of years. And we're coming in with this medication, we're thinking we're fixing acid reflux, but what we're causing is downstream problems because everything in the gut flows downstream. So if you start in the stomach and you disrupt stomach acid, you're not going to get the activation of the peptidases that break down protein the right way. So you're not going to break down your proteins correctly. You're going to have not as many amino acids that you can extract from your food. And then what happens is you're losing that first primary barrier that protects you from the bacteria and the yeast that come in through your food. So then we're seeing this epidemic of gut disease. And if you look at what has happened in society also in the last half century is the introduction of antibiotics and antimicrobials and ever increasing stronger antibiotics because the bugs that we initially could conquer with the simplest penicillin have become resistant to penicillin, so then we have to come out with even stronger drugs that cause huge disruptions in the gut microbiome. And antibiotics are prescribed worldwide. And not only prescribed, I mean, in other countries outside of the US, you can buy antibiotics over the counter without a prescription. And so we're seeing a predominance of these resistant bugs showing up, but more importantly, what we're seeing is a complete disruption of the gut microbiome. And because of that, then you have a breakdown of a very delicate symbiotic system that has evolved over centuries. And it is, I would, dare to say that it is the most complex ecosystem on the planet within our gut. The other super complex ecosystem that relates to the gut in many ways is the soil. The soil contains 25% of the biodiversity on the earth, but if you think about within our bodies, the biodiversity is contained within our gut. So we have 500 to 1,000 species of bacteria inside each and every one of us. They total 100 trillion in number. So they are having this drastic effect that we're really now in the last 2 decades finding through research. All the different permutations of how the gut microbiome is actually influencing our health, and you start to wonder who's really in charge. Are we in charge, or is the gut microbiome really in charge of our own mental state, how you feel in your body, inflammation in the body, your hormone balance, your blood sugar balance? So there's all these touch points that relate back to the gut. And I don't know, did I lose myself? Because I can go on, and I answered the question somewhere in there.
No, I love it. It's really great. You're helping to outline the problem and these tiny very fragile organisms that we carry, the microbiome, so fragile that we should think about getting wasted drunk and what that could do and the frequency of those types of things. Like these are major things, and you've got a really unique understanding. I think that,
and one thing I want to say is that it's a really unique system because it's the outside world inside of us. It's what you eat. It goes through you through this tubing system, and the only separation from that world that is potentially full of toxins that could kill you, all sorts of things that have to be kept carefully orchestrated on the other side of this barrier. This barrier is only 1 cell layer thick. Now it's being constantly replaced over time, so new cells are coming in every 7 to 10 days. The gut lining is being renewed, but that lining itself is a barrier of communication that is only 1 cell layer thick. I mean, just think about that. That's like the outer skin. And that's your interaction with the outside world in this constant communication with the gut microbiome that regulates, for example, our immune system. The immune system, 70% of it is located all along the gut barrier. And I tell people that it's like if if your gut barrier is inflamed, if it's out of balance, so if you've been on antibiotics, even birth control pill increases the permeability of the gut barrier, and how many women are on birth control pills, how many people have been on antibiotics, how many people have taken ibuprofen, NSAIDs, as we know, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, how many people drink alcohol. All these things alter the permeability of the gut barrier, which is a very delicate interface of communication with the gut microbiome, and on the other side, our immune system that is testing and seeing what's coming through, and that gut microbiome telling our own immune system to not get too activated, actually keeping it under control. So what we're seeing in society now is this predominance of gut disease and then inflammatory disorders and a burgeoning of autoimmune disease. So all of these interconnected diseases that are actually originating because of inflammation that is starting in the gut. Like I said, 70% of the immune system is there. So if there is a dysregulation of the immune system that starts in the gut, then it can go through the rest of the body. And probably, as we know, if you have leaky gut, which is an increase in the permeability of that gut barrier, so then think of it as a cheesecloth with really tiny holes that's only allowing the right nutrients through when it's healthy. And when it gets sick, that cheesecloth, the holes get bigger. And now you can see bigger macronutrients that shouldn't be getting through, including partially digested proteins, toxins, pesticides, other things that are bigger molecules are getting through into the body and triggering an inflammatory response. And thus then that becomes the trigger for a chronic disease, which in one person becomes a neurological disease, and another person becomes an autoimmune disease, and another person it becomes heart disease, because everybody has their own individual susceptibility. But the common thing is the fire in the gut, and we know that if there is an increase in permeability in the gut, then you see an increase in the permeability of what we call the blood-brain barrier, which is the protective barrier that keeps the brain almost like a privileged circulation that can protect itself from any circulating toxins in the body. But once your gut is leaky, all bets are off. The brain will become leaky. And my theory is probably there are other areas in the body that maybe the thyroid itself becomes leaky. I've heard doctors speaking about leaky heart syndrome connected with leaky gut. So there are other forces at play, but the primary one is starting in the gut, because that's our biggest exposure to the outside world is through what we eat, what we ingest, what we put into our bodies. And how many people are putting packaged foods that are loaded with chemicals that you can't even pronounce, and how do you know what that does to your body? Or artificial sweeteners, which even though they don't bump your blood sugar, they do alter your gut microbiome in a way that it increases your resistance to the hormone signal insulin, which by doing that will cause your blood sugar to rise and leads to weight gain and leads to carb cravings. So even the artificial sweeteners that have been marketed for weight loss actually, in the end, increase the risk for obesity, for diabetes, and for heart disease, and even stroke.
Wow. Is that something to do with toxin-induced insulin resistance?
It's different. You mean with the artificial sweeteners, what it's doing is, and I think indirectly, because it's feeding certain types of bacteria in the gut that then proliferate. And those bacteria, a lot of them produce something called endotoxin. And the endotoxin, which is also, the scientific term is LPS, or lipopolysaccharide, it's something that can circulate into the body, and it's fat soluble, so it gets through membranes really easily, so it can get into the circulation. And there are receptors for endotoxin in immune cells, in the liver, in muscle tissue, and in the brain. And what that receptor does is when it gets bound by endotoxin, it turns on an inflammatory pathway within the cell that tells the body we're under attack, we need to turn on inflammation, we're going to turn on all the machinery, the genetic machinery in the cells that encodes for inflammatory proteins, and start secreting them, and the body goes into this inflammatory state.
We need to be looking at the things that will promote gut health. We are all, at some point, exposed to parasites, environmental toxins, viruses, and so on. So, detoxing protocols are important to remove the bad and replace it with good things that promote gut health. We also need to consider what damaging effect stress has on the gut and be looking at lifestyle factors that keep our stress under control. Another main focus should be our daily diet. Is it harming or protecting our microbiome? What sort of food should we be eating to support gut health? This is an important question that we'll look at answering now. Before we continue with this episode, I want to take just a moment to share with you about a special program that we have for people that are looking for extra help. Now, what we've found is that people struggle because they feel alone in the journey and they're finding themselves guessing and experimenting so much, and they get discouraged in the process. And that's one of the most disappointing things for me. As I've shared this information, a lot of people have taken the information and they have felt alone in the process, and when they've come up to something like a challenge, they've often felt like maybe it's time to give up, and then that halts their healing journey. And I've felt so discouraged seeing that in people, and I've wanted to solve that problem, and that's what we solve. You're gonna see some stories here in this episode about people that have had transformation, like Natalia, and you'll see this through the series, and you'll see these amazing breakthrough case studies of people that have got tremendous results. And one of the most profound things that you'll find here is that they actually not only use the information, but they use the special program that we created to get these results. And this is what we're offering. And not only are we offering it, making it available to you, but we're also giving that at a fraction of the price that we normally offer it for, along with a lot of bonuses that we don't give at other times. And some of these things include going through a full 4-month program of supplements specifically designed. We've had experts, doctors from this series help to come up with this program and the formulations to help remove these toxic infections and help restore the gut and remove parasites and toxic heavy metals. And this is the program that Natalia used. It's with Well of Life, and we've found people get tremendous results when they use this. And so we've made it available to you, as well as the weekly sessions that we have with the doctors from this series, like Dr. Brooke Goldner and Dr. Khan and Dr. Geringer, and they're going to be sharing with you how to stick with this protocol, how to get transformations, answering your questions. And it's really a very enjoyable, fun process. And you look to your left and you look to your right, you see other people getting results, and it helps you to continue when you feel stuck or you're not sure what to do next. You're getting the direct advice, and you're seeing other people in this coaching session to also going through the same experiences, and you watch them learn and grow, and you find yourself doing the same thing. So we've made this available to you. We're meeting also weekly with a nutritionist to make sure that we're on the right path with the diet and sticking with this and overcoming hurdles and challenges. And we're making sure that this is tailored to you, and that's why you get to voice what's going on for you, so the doctors and the nutritionists can answer you directly, as well as having some support directly one-on-one with a health coach during the program. So you can learn more about this by clicking below. And again, we only have this available for a very limited time, just during the screening of this series. And so then we close it down after that, and then we're focusing on serving the people that have said yes, so we can get them the best results possible. And to make that possible for you, we've made it available with payment plans and other ways. To make sure this is something that you can do, we've made some options available so it's affordable for you. So you can simply click the link below to check it out, so you can learn more and take advantage while we're offering this very special discount during this time, with all these bonuses of direct support from our community, our experts, and with this special program designed to help you heal, along with the weekly. So let's dive in.
We live in a time of fadism as it relates to diets, fads. There's a popular diet one day that's maybe it's ketogenic diet, maybe it's a paleo diet, maybe it's being more carnivorous. But I think if you want to have one overriding principle in terms of guiding your diet decisions, it should be eat to nurture your gut bacteria. And you can nuance that with Paleolithic ideas, with ketogenic ideas, wonderful, with all kinds of diets. But if you focus, if your ultimate goal is to nurture your bacterial friends that live within you, then you will focus on a diet that checks a lot of the boxes. It's virtually devoid of simple carbs, refined carbohydrates. You really aren't going to see sugar. What you are going to see is color, various colors on the plate, because the plate is covered with colorful, nutrient-dense, mostly vegetables, mostly plant-derived foods. Now, this is coming from the Grain Brain doctor, who people accused of being Atkins, the next iteration of the Atkins diet, being high in meat and no vegetables. Nothing is, we've never said that, and nothing could be worse for you. You want your vegetables. Why? Well, if you want to nurture your gut bacteria, you're going to need to eat fiber. And fiber is found only in vegetables and fruit. There is no fiber in any animal-based product. So these trends to eat more animal-based products, more meat, are interesting. But they're now depriving your gut of what it really needs, and that is to give nutrition to your gut bacteria. Have some meat if you choose to eat meat alongside. Have some wild fish, some free-range chicken. Great. Some pasture-raised eggs. Totally fine. But most of the plate is vegetable, plant-based, high in fiber, colorful, array of vegetables, various nutrients that are that are represented because of the different colors that you would then see. And then what are the other things that you're going to want to think about in terms of keeping your gut bacteria healthy? Well, it turns out that there are some surprises here. And it turns out that one of the things we really look at in terms of what makes for a healthy gut is diversity. We've got to welcome diversity, not just in the gut bacteria, but across our planet. Because diversity means resilience. The more different bacteria that are represented in the gut, the more resilient the person is going to be to onslaught of potentially threatening things in the environment, be they chemical, be they lifestyle, whatever they may be. So we want diversity. And it turns out that aside from food, with food being number one, a big player in gut bacterial diversity is aerobic exercise. So the associations have been that people who have higher levels of cardiovascular fitness have higher gut bacterial diversity. So it brings this notion of more aerobic exercise literally to the table in terms of amplifying the diversity of our gut bacteria. We know that our gut bacteria are threatened when we don't get enough restorative sleep. There's even some new, pretty forward-thinking research that demonstrates that nature exposure, getting out of doors and interacting with nature, has a positive effect on our gut microbes, allowing flourishing of good species and allowing more diversity.
A couple of things that I think a lot of people would have expected in your answer would be that it wasn't just food, even though that may be the biggest player, if there's one to be weighed more heavily than the others. However, without the other correct factors, for example, the exercise, particularly aerobic exercise, which will improve the digestion, the ability for the body to intake the nutrients and to utilize the healthy and delicious food that we may be eating, that without that exercise is much less effective. And then the sunlight exposure, the outdoor environment, and the effect this has on the breathing, and how this revitalizes and helps to flourish these good guys that are not just looking for us to do one thing, they're looking for a system, or what they need is so diverse. Mitochondria in the cell, the sunlight, and these are really interesting tools for people to consider.
One of the biggest threats to the gut bacteria, aside from antibiotics and other medications, is a chemical produced in the body called cortisol. Now, cortisol is a stress hormone. Our bodies produce cortisol when we are threatened or we perceive a threat even though it's not actually there. So our busy, stressful lives are constantly amping up our body's production of cortisol, which puts us into fight or flight mode, and that does a couple of things. It produces this chemical cortisol that has an effect on the diversity of the bacteria, which bacteria will survive and overpopulate and which bacteria will not, and also has a direct effect on some of the immune cells that cluster around the gut and are involved in creating the chemical mediators of inflammation. So, how do we offset cortisol? Well, look at our lifestyles. What are we doing that's so stressful? Maybe turn the news off at night and don't engage in that stuff day in and day out. Maybe realize that the pop-ups on your computer screen are by and large threatening to you, making you feel inadequate, that you have to buy something, constantly challenging you to need to reevaluate yourself. And, really understand that there's so much going on in our day-to-day lives that pulls us towards stress and production of cortisol, which we can offset by making choices. For example, to engage in mindfulness and meditation, clearly shown to lower cortisol levels. Engaging in nature has clearly been shown to lower cortisol levels, even in a city. So a recent study measured the level of cortisol in the saliva of individuals who visited a park in the middle of downtown in a big city. And their cortisol levels went down when they were near the trees, when they were appreciating nature. So it's really very valuable. We realize that mentality tends to increase our connection to the part of the brain that lets us make better decisions. So it fosters the rest of what we want to do to make the gut bacteria better. So getting back to then job one, which is to eat the right foods, we want to eat foods that are high in prebiotic fiber. What are those? Well, chicory root, Mexican yam or jicama, dandelion greens, garlic, onions, leeks. These are powerful sources, concentrated sources of good prebiotic fiber that not only allows your gut bacteria to repopulate, but also encourages them to do what they do from a metabolic perspective, make the chemicals that your body needs, help to repair and maintain the gut lining. Those are complex carbohydrates, those fiber-rich foods. When we deprive our gut bacteria of carbohydrates, these types of carbohydrates, then what happens is they look around for other carbohydrates to digest, and guess what? The lining of the gut, the mucinous layer of the gut lining is carbohydrate. So they start to digest, to dissolve away the gut lining, and that's exactly what we don't need. That opens the door, quite literally, opens the door for bad health.
We were told about the importance of eating our broccoli as a kid. We know vegetables are healthier because this is what we were told growing up. But often we don't know exactly what they do for our bodies. Next, we're going to talk about the importance of those cruciferous vegetables and how they help to reduce inflammation in the body and work to promote the body's natural detoxification system. These two mechanisms are very important for gut health.
So when we want to renew the gut, we have to think of it holistically, right? It's not just about something here and here. You have to think about the environment in which you eat, sitting down and playing nice music, eating with good company, putting nutritious food in your body. You want to chew your food slowly, masticate. You don't want to just swallow your food or inhale your food because that digestion process is really important. And then we have to look at all these different factors. So the clinical approach to renewing the gut, healing the gut, involves three important processes. First, we need to support enzymatic process. Why? Because that is where absorption and breakdown first happens. If you can't break down the food, you can't absorb it. And if you can't absorb it, then it doesn't matter how healthy you eat, then you're not going to be able to extract the nutrient from that food. So enzymes is really important. And we talked about how many people suffers with pancreatic insufficiency where they're not making enough enzyme. And remember, why would they not make enough enzyme? It could be because that there's stress that's happening. And when your body's in a fight or flight state, digestion is compromised. So literally the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight nervous system is engaged, which shuts down the digest and relax system. So for you to make enzyme, for your body to think that you're actually sitting down enjoying a nice meal, you cannot be stressed. So a lot of times people are in a chronically stressed state, and that causes enzyme deficiency. That's one way that can happen. Other people may have enzyme deficiency due to pancreatic issues. If someone's diabetic and they're constantly pumping out insulin, the pancreas may not be able to secrete enough enzyme because that organ literally is experiencing fatigue and possible failure. So there's many different reasons for that, but I can tell you that enzyme deficiency is so common. In fact, as we age, gastric acid and stomach enzyme and pancreatic enzyme production tend to decline with age, just as a normal part of aging. So for most people, a multivitamin is not what I recommend. Enzymes what I recommend, because if you can take the enzymes and improve your enzymatic breakdown, then you're going to be able to extract more nutrient from your food, and multivitamin is kind of an afterthought. Okay, so enzyme is the first step. The next step to healing the gut is the microbiome. And this is so important because the number of microbiome or microorganism in the human body exceed the number of human cells in the body. So really we're more pathogen than we are human. But these microbiome are not bad for us. In fact, they live in symbiosis with us, in concert and harmony with us. They assist us with nutrient absorption and breakdown. They assist us with literally making vitamins such as vitamin K. These microbiome also serves really important function in regulating immune function. They also serve really important function in affecting brain function. New research is showing that the microbiome health can impact neurotransmitter levels and brain inflammation. So microbiome health is important. Now the microbiome is very sensitive to various toxins and the processed food, sugary foods, as well as medication. So for example, organophosphates such as glyphosate found in pesticide has a damaging effect on the microbiome. Antibiotics from medication, but remember antibiotic is not just in medication. You'll find antibiotics, it's ubiquitous in our environment, from disinfecting wipes, disinfecting soap, right? Everything has like some kind of disinfectant property to it. They put antibiotic in everything, so it becomes so sterile that the microbiome is not able to thrive. And that's why so many people have microbiome deficiencies or imbalance. And if you keep in mind that not just the chemical and the toxins and the medication, stress itself can affect the microbiome. So stress is a big deal here. Now the third step to addressing gut renewal or to heal the gut is a concept that most people don't think about in the gut. And what I call is detox. Now specifically, binding of toxin, cleansing. So we don't think about that with the gut because we typically think of detox as a liver business. But in the gut, you can actually accumulate toxins in the gut lining. I see this clinically quite a bit when we do sort of specific type of testing to identify this. And so that when you have toxins in the gut, these toxins may actually block the villi and block the epithelial cells from absorbing nutrients. Almost like the space between the gut lining where nutrients are supposed to be absorbed is blocked by these toxins. And this could be pesticides, this could be fire retardant material, artificial colors and ingredients, medications, residues. So it could be a number of things that can actually bind to the intestinal lining and cause blockage and cause absorption issue and cause just this internal environment where the gut lining is toxic. So we want to, in a sense, bind to the toxins in the gut and cleanse, or in a sense, scrub the toxin from the gut. And that's something that a lot of people don't actually think about. So these are the three things that we want to do to help renew the gut, okay, to heal the gut. So what I really like about what the Well of Life team has designed and come up with is the Gut Renewal Bundle. The Gut Renewal Bundle contains products that support each of these three important steps in renewing the gut. And so, for example, with the enzymes, we have a product called the digestive enzyme. And the digestive enzyme is a product that contains various enzymes that help assist in the breakdown of carbohydrates, fats, proteins, complex fibers, and starches that may be problematic for those with small intestinal bacterial overgrowth or SIBO. In those people with SIBO, breaking down food is really important because if you can break down fiber and food to a smaller constituent, then the bacteria does not have a chance to ferment against that. The digestive enzyme from Wildlife Life contains various different enzymes to support the digestion and breakdown of carbohydrates, fats, proteins, and fibers. These include fungal proteases, includes lipase and lactase, which break down dairy. It contains papain and bromelain, which are proteolytic enzymes to help you break down tough proteins. It also contains alpha galactosidase, which helps break down complex carbohydrates and fiber. And it also has the addition of lactobacillus, which is a probiotic to help support digestion and assimilation. So this product is very full spectrum because you need that for digestive process. You don't just eat carbohydrate. You don't just eat protein. You eat all of them. So in an enzyme, you need all of those different type of enzyme to support the breakdown process of that nutrient. Okay? So that's really important as far as supporting that digestive process. And a lot of people want to take something that's antimicrobial, but I would say for most people, digesting the food and breaking it down is actually just as important, if not more important, than actually using some kind of antimicrobial. So enzyme is critical in that step, and that covers this step here. The next step is support microbiome health, and you do that with a full spectrum, high potency probiotic, and that's what we see here with probiotic 40 billion plus, or CFU. And the probiotic 40 billion contains 40 billion colony-forming units, or CFU, of various 4 different strains of probiotic. These can include the lactobacillus species, as well as the bifido species. And you need a variety to support a variety of the microbiome. Single strain species probiotic tend to not work. You'll see out on the market that you can buy lactobacillus just by itself, one strain. And that tend to be not as efficient or effective as something that has 4 different species that'll help you support the full diversity of microbiome. The last part of the comprehensive gut renewal program should include detoxing the gut, and this is going to be accomplished by the superfulvic minerals. This formula I'm very, very impressed with because it contains over 100 different micronutrients, 18 amino acids, 13 organic acids, and what it does is going to help support not only the transport and assimilation of nutrients, it's going to support the detoxification of intestinal tract, as well as it's going to support the chelation and binding to harmful chemicals. Superfulvic minerals is derived from humus, which is the decomposed organic matter over thousands of years that's accumulated on the earth. And this humus is full of nutrients from the accumulation of all these breakdown of organic matters. Therefore, it contains a variety of nutrients that's not commonly found in the deficient soil that we have today. Due to over-farming, the minerals today in the soil today is deficient of these trace organic matters. So that makes superfulvic mineral a very key component to a gut renewal program to supply nutrients. Not only will help you with assimilation of nutrients, it also helps balances pH in the gut environment. It supports in modulating the immune system to decrease gut inflammation. It supports the heavy metal binding. It's also a great cleanser of the intestinal tract. And this is something that's really overlooked in both natural medicine and conventional medicine. And it's a key part to the overall gut renewal process. In my practice, I see so many people with chronic health conditions, ranging from autoimmune disease to inflammation to chronic pain to chronic neurological conditions such as brain fog, fatigue, memory loss. And the common denominator between all these people with these different conditions is that their gut health is compromised. If you struggle with any of these conditions or any chronic health condition and you're looking to improve your health, start with the gut. And you must do it in a comprehensive protocol that covers enzymatic breakdown, which will help you with absorption, the microbiome health, as well as the detox, binding, and cleansing of your gut.
Diana had narcolepsy, and she had Guillain-Barré, which is similar to MS, multiple sclerosis, and she also had some other issues with insomnia and other conditions, and her husband had psoriatic arthritis and arthritis. They both did the same thing, and then they got results as well, and we've been sharing those results. So that should give you a good example to listen carefully to what we say is the path and the way, and not to get so obsessed about your exact diagnosis, because what we're talking about here is due to toxic exposures and what we can do to eliminate them out of our lives. So
Yeah, well, in 1988, I had Guillain-Barré. I was on life support for 27 days and totally paralyzed. And healing from that, um, which now I know is autoimmune. No one ever said that back then, that these things, what they were. But and then back in 1998, I was diagnosed with myasthenia gravis and narcolepsy, cataplexy. And so I had been fighting that and fatigue for a long time. And had several illnesses back then along with it. The thyroid was going bad. They were telling me I had hypothyroidism and I had severe allergies, and I was on like 7 medications for all of that. But um, decided to do a vegan diet after praying, and I felt like that's where the Lord had led me to go on a vegan diet, and got better, got pretty much better from most of it, but never did heal from the narcolepsy and cataplexy. And then going on. I'm sorry.
And meanwhile, like in a parallel universe, your husband is battling with his conditions, right?
He had severe acid reflux, and I told him, what had worked for me was vegetarian diet. Seems to heal a lot of things. Let's try it. And he went on it, and within 3 or 4 days, he didn't have acid reflux anymore. But he'd had a skin condition. It was a mild skin condition that mostly affected his face for the whole time he'd been married. He says for his whole life.
Yeah.
And this year, it got really severe. He started having joint pain in his hand and his knee, and he started breaking out in lesions all over his body, and a really bad just raw spot in his hairline in the back. And so about that time, I was doing the autoimmune webinar with you guys, and going through all that and realizing that a lot of his conditions were autoimmune, mine were autoimmune, and that we needed to start treating them that way and trying to get better. And so
That's awesome. That's a really great classification. So then you could see, hey, look, this could be toxic inflammation. Because it's one thing to just think, I've got these flare-ups. I've got psoriatic arthritis and psoriasis, and it's just like, maybe something's kind of messed up. So
yeah, we never connected the dots that these things were our bodies cascading down into some, just autoimmune, like an autoimmune cascade. I always thought they were each individual things happening to us. And it just kind of put everything in perspective, that we realized that a lot of it had to do with our gut, and we needed to clean that up. And so we started doing the detox protocol that you had, and learning some of the tips and tricks from your autoimmune recipes and other things that were it was the recipes and
so those dietary changes that you did through taking some of the recipes. So all these guys here, just having gone through Natural Medicine Secrets, remember, those protocol books are amazing, like the recovery protocol. You went through the recovery protocol, and there's recipes in there. Use them. They're amazing tools that eat delicious. Because if you want to heal, you've got to start eating healthy, delicious. Sometimes, having good tasting food is actually part of the healing process. But then you did the Ultimate Detox Bundle. You're about to start the Gut Renewal Bundle, and your husband did it as well. And so this was a major catalyst for both of you, from what you've shared with me in regards to your husband being able to clear up. I mean, tell me how that story went.
Well, those lesions have gone away, and they have not come back since we started. We did do a 14-day juice fast.
Yep.
And I was looking back at the dates because I was just at the doctor's office today for a checkup, and I had gone to her on 6/14, which was right about the time we were starting the juice fast. And since that time, she said I've lost 18 pounds. So they were kind of going like, what happened to you? What's going on? And I said, this is a good thing. This is really a good thing.
And there's never really one thing that anyone ever does in isolation. You're going to be drinking water. You've got to either improve or worsen. Something's going to be happening with your diet. But we found the biggest needle mover to be these particular ingredients were helping to remove toxins from her and her husband, manifesting in different ways. With her, it was the sleep, it was the strength, and then with her husband, it was his ability to close his hands. Could you imagine, like, toxic inflammation, so you can't even move your hands, and then
No, it's mainly the thumbs, and
our thumbs.
work he does. It was just so swollen and sore in there. After reading about psoriatic arthritis, because I didn't know anything about it, I realized, how detrimental that is and how bad it can get. But yeah, he was amazed that he could do this.
That's awesome.
That simple little thing. He was really excited about it.
That's fantastic. And so somebody not able to do this, not before long, they're not going to be able to do this. Before long, they're not going to be able to do this and this. And so, I mean, I've seen people that can't move their hands like that, and then within 2 weeks, 3 weeks on a good detox, they're able to do this. Diane, if you just compare the before and after, the results that you and your husband experienced, and what that's been like for you.
Well, losing the weight is great, but gaining the energy is the best part. That's what I really, actually, I would, by 9:30, sometimes 8:30, sometimes 5:30, by the time I got off work, I would be so exhausted, I would just want to go to bed. I would have no energy to do anything. And I'm finding that I have energy up till 11 o'clock at night. I feel more normal than I ever have in my life. And I'm able to go and do things. I wouldn't even drive much in the evening because of it. But my husband, he's not so diligent about his diet. So but he's maintaining these, his the psoriatic arthritis reliefs he's had. He's maintaining those. He's happy about that. He's losing a little bit of weight slowly, and he's doing really well.
Awesome.
Really well.
Well, you guys are amazing. Can't wait. Thank you for inspiring the group, Diana. Thank you for your amazing results. I mean, and what would you say to someone that was thinking about getting started using a program like yours or the other programs that we have here? What would you say to that person?
If you're suffering with anything, I think that just jumping in there and trying something new that's designed, like that package that's designed to work together, it made the difference for me, and it may make the difference for you. If you've tried other things, this may be the answer.
Fantastic. Thank you, Diana. You're amazing. And can't wait to see you again. Thank you for joining us. So do you have any other foods that rank up high on your list for either just good for overall health and then specifically microbiome health?
We've always been told that we should eat cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, kale, even wasabi, believe it or not, is a cruciferous vegetable. Cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, good cruciferous vegetables. Why are they called cruciferous? Because when the vegetable is allowed to go to flower, the flower is shaped like a cross or a crucifix, so hence cruciferous vegetables. And yeah, we've been told for years they're good. They have lots of vitamins, they have lots of antioxidants, and they're a good source of fiber. But what we understand now, which I think is getting a lot of attention, is that cruciferous vegetables help us raise levels of things like sulforaphane in our bodies. That there are chemicals in these vegetables that, when they are released by certain enzymes, one being called myrosinase, which happens when we chew these vegetables,
or miracinase made by, who guessed, our gut bacteria when we digest these vegetables. This sulforaphane is at the peak level of a cascade that activates hundreds of genes that are good for us. So sulforaphane turns on a pathway called the NRF2 pathway, not to be too technical. But that pathway powers up detoxification. It powers up the production of your body's own endogenous antioxidants, and it powerfully reduces inflammation. That's why broccoli is so important. And far more concentrated ability to get the sulforaphane comes from broccoli sprouts, much more than eating the broccoli, especially after the broccoli's been cooked. And if new data is correct, the seeds of broccoli may be even a more powerful way to get higher levels of sulforaphane. The trick is, in order for that glucoraphanin, which is the chemical, to be morphed into sulforaphane, you have to have that enzyme, miracinase. How do you get it? By chewing these foods. Breaks open the cell, releases this enzyme, and sulforaphane goes, yeah, I'm here to do my job. I'm here to reduce inflammation. I'm here to nurture your gut, and I'm here to help you make your body's own detoxification and antioxidant chemicals. So that's why the cruciferous vegetables are so very, very valuable.
We look at the blue zones, they're the 5 longest living groups of people in the world as studied by the National Geographic study under Dan Buettner, that we see with these 5 groups of people across the world, one of them being in America, the other ones being in Okinawa and Sardinia and Ikaria. And these places, they had a lot more plants than your average person. So what were the benefits of all those different foods that they were eating?
Look at their microbiomes. So when we talk about the so-called blue zones and look at the multiple factors that are associative in terms of outcome, which in this case longevity, I think it's important to really get your arms around the fact that this doesn't lend 100% scientific support for each of those factors in isolation, which goes against the current scientific method of trying to extract, well, what is it that they're doing? What is the magic food or the magic lifestyle thing that these people are doing and have done, which connotes a longer lifespan? Because that's the nature of modern science. What is the variable? And I think what blue zones demonstrate is that it's this compilation of variables. Yes, they eat more vegetables. Yes, they're more active. Yes, they remained involved in doing constructive things that contributed to society for a longer period of time. And yes, they have much stronger relationships within their families and in their communities than is the norm in our world today. Now, each of those factors is very important. So I think what we should say from understanding the results of this project is that it really looks like it's not one thing that you can put in a bottle, but it's this whole lifestyle agenda that we should be looking at. Yes, there's value in connecting to other people. Yes, there's value in physical activity, in getting restorative sleep, in eating the right foods. And, you know, truthfully, some of the foods that are eaten in these cultures that have a long lifespan are not necessarily on our list, you know, but it might be that by and large the food is good, but that all of the rest of the factors that they engage in conspire to really bring the food along and help it along to still also lend itself to extending lifespan. So I think the biggest thing that we've learned from the blue zones, what I've learned from the blue zones, is it really validates the notion of bringing as many things to bear as we can to offer up to you the best choices in terms of what you can take from information and then make changes in your lifestyle choices. It's not one thing. There's no magic supplement. You can take all the sulforaphane you want. That's great. You can exercise till you're blue in the face. All great, or maybe not. But the point is, it's bringing the whole program together, body, mind, and spirit. And not to undervalue the spiritual part of the experience. Why? Because meditative practices are at the
forefront of scientific research right now, showing physical and functional changes in the brains of meditators that are the types of changes that we are looking for. Higher activity in the parts of the brain that allow us to make better decisions, that allow us to plan for the future, and allow us to be more compassionate, empathetic beings, not just for ourselves and not just for our neighbors, but for the planet itself. So, this is really important that we understand it's a compilation of things. It's a program, not a thing. Why? It's the implementation. You bought the book, you watched the docuseries, you watched the program, you watched something on television. You guys, you got to